Hi, this is Design Lota.
The podcast about life as Indian designers.
I'm Angie.
And I'm Sushi.
The past few months have been a challenging time for a number of industries, the craft sector being one of them.
At the same time, crafts have been in the news quite a bit lately, particularly textiles.
Why don't you give us the headlines, Sushi?
Let's see. Some of the oldest handloom co ops, including Charaka, announced that they were shutting down because of the cash crunch. The government also made a highly controversial move to scrap the handloom board, and then a certain document happened to resurface around the same time.
Right. This was a catalog curated by John Forbes Watson. This document showcased about 700 samples of different patterns, materials, and textures of Indian fabrics.
Sounds like a dream, right? Except
Hmm.
that this guy was a Britisher who was also the museum director of the India Museum in the 1860s.
And it was intended to inspire students and manufacturers in Britain to replicate low cost fabrics and sell them back to the Indian market.
Yikes. Even today, when it comes to traditional and indigenous art forms, there's a thin line between showcasing or giving exposure versus benefiting unfairly from the work of socially and economically disadvantaged communities.
And as confusing as it can be to navigate that fine line, this is a good time for us as Indians to learn all we can about the richness and the stories behind our Indian textiles, be it as designers or as consumers.
Aditi Jain, a textile designer who works with handloom weavers, helps us dive into this conversation. Hi, Aditi, and welcome to Design Lota.
Hi, Sush. How are you?
I'm good. So, what are you up to these days?
Okay, surprisingly, given the lockdown, I've still got lots going on. So I've been working with Gandhigram for the last about 2.5 years. And now that we're all working from home, so all the coordination and everything is happening over email and WhatsApp. And my family also runs two businesses called Sarangi and Rasvihar. So Sarangi is again for handloom saris and all things handmade. So I've been like, especially with the lockdown, trying to diversify our products a little more to different crafts. And Rasvihar is all about customized fine jewelry. So I'm experimenting with some new products there also, dipping into a little bit of product design.
So, we're all like really curious about how you ended up doing what you're doing. And we would love to hear your story, like a brief introduction of how you got into textiles and specifically into traditional textiles.
Okay, so it actually started with a short stint, at Sarangi with my father. So I guess sometime in 2013, I just finished my graduation in Viscom from MOP, and I was pretty lost and clueless. I had no idea, what I wanted to do. Honestly, Viscom didn't excite me as much. So now that I was working at the store, I was surrounded by a lot of beautiful textiles, and it was really inspiring. So I realized, okay, textiles seems like something I could do. I was still not sure, but at this point, I really had nothing to lose. So I applied for a textile design course at NID for my master's, and somehow managed to get in. And I think that really set the solid foundation for me in terms of concepts. How do you understand crafts, or how do you understand this? Like for me, up until then, textile was just fabric and material, and it's about the stories or the process and the techniques, all that I only learned at NID. So, and shortly after graduating, I heard of this opening at Gandhigram. So I just I had to find myself over there somehow. So yeah, that's basically a short gist of how I got here.
Wow. So, what's the design process like at Gandhigram, like from design all the way to the actual production?
Okay, so with Gandhigram, actually, it's a really interesting anecdote. So initially, when I joined there about 2 years ago, I've learned textiles very academically, right? So I wanted to make a proper spec sheet for every design, and so I presented them like all the weavers and artisans, like they were all sitting, and I was trying to present this. This is how I'm planning to give you the spec sheet. Like, do you guys understand it? Should I change anything? And they all just stared, they were just staring at me And then one of them said, okay, listen, we don't understand this at all. You tell us and we'll do it. This paperwork is not for us. Okay, so I was like a bit disappointed in the sense that, okay, now how do I do this? How do I still make a proper spec sheet, or what is a efficient way of handing out design? And eventually, I just said, okay, let me go with the flow and see what happens. So the way we used to work with them is, like every week when they would come, we would have a verbal discussion of the design, maybe like a small sketch, like with just a ballpoint pen or something, and that's it. And like 90% the design would come, as per the discussion. So weaver would just be given plain Kora undyed yarn, and each weaver would come to the dyeing house and get their warps dyed in whatever colors that they wanted. Now, with this process, there was a bit of an issue because each time the dyeing house has to stop the production that they're doing to attend to the weaver, because even the weaver needs it immediately. And also, when you're dyeing small quantities, the raw material wastage is a lot more. So, one of the first tasks that I had when I joined was to standardize a shade card.
And I bet you love that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do because we had to, mix a lot of these dye colors to get a particular shade, and sometimes we'd mix two different dye colors and still get the same shade. So, so it was a lot of fun experimenting with that. So once we had sort of arrived at one set of colors, we started also. I realized that we needed to dye these in bulk. Bulk meaning about 500 hanks. Typically, one warp requires about 200. So I said, okay, at least 500, 500 in like 4, 5 colors. If we have that as, in standby at all times, it'll probably make it easier. And it did eventually, because the weavers, the one step of the process was taken care for them. So they just had to come and we discussed the design and the colors, and they would pick the already dyed yarn. So that way, even the dye raw material, a little bit of the wastage was saved. So that, and of course, the weaver has his own preloom processes where he needs to do the sizing. Then they join the warp ends. Each of these like take about a day. So it takes a weaver about 2, 3 days to just set up a warp to pull out four
Wow.
saris. Yeah. And after this, of course, there's the marketing and sales, which thankfully I don't have to trouble myself too much with. Although I do like talking to customers, because that's how I get design feedback. I get an idea of what people are looking for. So during an exhibition, if a customer says that, oh, I don't like big borders, I want a small, just a color at the edge. So I start incorporating that in the next set of designs. Or sometimes it could be a technical feedback also, where they would say that, see, this yarn is getting stuck to my finger, so can
Okay.
you, yeah. So that way it's really, I like customer interaction, but I don't enjoy the sales part of it.
So, when you talked about textiles and having to make specification sheets and things like that, it seems like a very technical sort of discipline. But then textiles is something that we often look at as someone who's not from a textile design background as something very surface level, something very aesthetic. So, do you feel like textiles are more of an art or a science or both? And can you talk about how art and science play a role in defining textiles?
It's actually a really interesting question. And so recently at Sarangi, we just sort of published a blog article on how, the title is "What You Get Is More Than What You See." We just launched these organic desi cotton towels from Kaskom, and they look really plain and simple on the surface, but there's like a big backstory to it, which is obviously not visible on the cloth, right? So the cotton is actually an indigenous variety of Karungani cotton, which is local to Tamil Nadu. It is resilient, it's completely rain fed. There's no need for pesticides or chemicals of any sort. It's hand spun and hand woven. You need to be told all of these things to know that that simple fabric has all of this story behind it. And these are also the decision making factors, right? Only when a customer or a person knows that this is all that has happened will they be inclined to buy it. So to me, it is sort of like art in the sense that it's the value that the end user or the consumer is, what they see in the product. And then, therefore, are they willing to then invest in it, whether it is monetarily or even emotionally. And I guess most Indian crafts are valuable because of these intrinsic qualities, whether it is the community support that those crafts have built, or whether it is a dying skill itself. It thrives because we all do value the art element in it. And science, of course, I mean, textile is a lot of science, whether it is weaving, which is mathematics, lots of mathematics, or whether it is dyeing, natural dyeing.
Chemistry.
Yeah, and then that is, if you go beyond traditional textiles or and into even technical textiles, is a lot of science and tech has gone into it. So textile is, like I said, on the surface. I mean, it looks very surface, but there is a lot of depth to it.
And the work that you do currently is more focused on the slow and timeless, on sustainable processes, right?
Right.
And of late, a lot of millennials and also even middle aged people are opting for this slow, timeless pieces as opposed to fast fashion now. But I feel like it's still more of a niche, right? There hasn't been like mass adoption of slow textiles. So, what do you think are the barriers that prevent it from becoming more mainstream and becoming the status quo?
I guess the first would be price. Everyone is used to paying a lot less for a lot more. So I think that would be, I guess, the first barrier one would have to cross. And I guess the second is also design options. In fast fashion, you have a lot of options, sizes, colors, fits. But with the slower, more conscious clothing, it's not possible to give you all of these options, and also not everyone has well designed products. And for someone to be able to find like that one classic piece that they know they're going to savor for the next at least 8-10 years, that can be quite challenging. Also, I guess it does take a lot of effort to remind yourself that that price of one expensive, well-made classic piece really trumps a lot of the fast fashion, quick
Yeah.
clothing.
So the high price does seem to be like a really discouraging factor, right? When it comes to opting for anything, any of these authentic khadi textiles.
Yeah.
And also, I think I've heard a lot of people comment about how it's ironic that the very symbol of democracy and independence, like how we Indians know it, is now unaffordable by the masses.
Yes.
So, do you think it's really unaffordable by the masses, or do you think that's more of a perception and depends on the sales channels where you find it? And what do you think we can do as designers to aid the democratization of Indian textiles? Not in a way that cheapens them, but in a way that it becomes accessible to everybody because it's a part of our heritage.
Okay, so I'm a bit torn between this two. I mean, it's a important question. I do believe that these products they should be available and affordable for the masses, and products should first reach the local markets. And even the makers themselves now, don't really get to wear what they make because it's inherently expensive. Um, so the idea does seem a bit far fetched at the moment, but that's the thing, right? The whole concept behind khadi was self sufficiency when Gandhiji brought it up. So the idea was that each person makes their own cloth and they're not dependent on any external entity for their clothing needs at least. And in the recent decades, that has obviously changed. Our aspirations have changed. We don't have that kind of time or the skill set to be, making our own clothes. So When we want other people to be making our clothes to do the work, and we want a variety of options, then naturally we have to pay the price that comes with it, because each step you have to pay that person who's involved. Especially with hand processes, we want to give them high quality of living and everything, so it all comes with a price. So that's where my dichotomy with this whole thing is as well. And specifically with khadi, the government does throw in a subsidy to make it slightly more affordable. And I do think it is. I mean, it's really not as much. We do buy these branded pants for 5,000, 6,000. So, I mean, in comparison, it really doesn't seem like a crazy amount for something that is consciously made. And I think as designers and as a country, we need to actively work in design for that 90%, in and not just for the top 10% that we're all actually doing.
So, branching off from what you said about our self sufficiency as a country and also designing for not just the 1%, recent global happenings have sort of drawn our attention to a whole range of discussions about history and traditional crafts and even colonialism. And also, we also see a rise in Indian companies claiming to use khadi and traditional fabrics, and with a minimalist twist because that's the trend right now globally. And these fabrics and these products tend to be geared towards a Western audience or an upper class Indian audience. So, how do you feel about this as someone who works so closely with the makers of these traditional fabrics?
It could seem like it's pretentious, but not in all cases. Because in many times, getting that right quality is the hardest part, since all of these are made by hand, there's natural to have some difference in quality. Sometimes it goes way par acceptable norms. That is, no, I'm not saying by any industrial standard, but even for any of us to accept subpar quality, I don't think we'd like that. So for brands to get that right is quite a challenge. So I think a lot of them do work very hard to achieve that. And of course, naturally, they will design according to their target audience. Like me included, I wouldn't want anything that's too flashy or that has a design element just for the sake of putting something there.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so for that, I'm all in for brands who are working with the current trends, because we also need to sell, right? So yes, that. And of course, many times the weavers themselves feel very happy when they see that their product is being worn by someone, say in the US or in the UK. They feel like, okay, what they've made has traveled so far, or it's been appreciated by other people as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's as horrifying as we think it is.
So, if the brand is owned by, say, a British person or an NRI who is in Britain, would that have the potential to grow into a form of colonialism?
I mean, any form of exploitation, whether they are NRIs or Indians, is wrong. So at this point, I'm not too worried about that. Also, there are, in fact, a few artisans I do know who specifically don't like to work with Indians because of the lack of discipline that many Indians in their experience have shown. I called one or two organizations to, I wanted to get some sampling done, and they said, no, we only work with international brands. I was, of course, disappointed, but I also get that, they also want something easy to work with. So, in a way, the argument could also go that Indian brands should work for India first. And also, I do think, we keep talking about the craftspeople, but also we all consume our gadgets, our entertainment. None of that is specifically Indian or Indian owned. So, I mean, if we're worried about colonization, then I think we're all colonized anyway.
And speaking of Indian brands,
Yeah.
we also see a lot of Indian mainstream fast fashion brands incorporate elements of traditional design. So they may not have a real ikat fabric, but they might have an ikat print on like a generic fabric. And they've not really thought about the community or the origin of these fabrics and whether it's responsible to do this. But for textile designers working in a fast fashion setting, I feel like there's this constant need to sort of churn out new designs based on what is seen on a runway, or there's like spin-offs from say Ritu Kumar and Manish Malhotra and those designers. So what do you feel about this, and where does one draw the line? Where do you think it stops being inspiration and then becomes appropriation?
Printed ikat cannot be called ikat, you know, since obviously it has not gone through any of the processes that an ikat is, traditionally put through. And it's just blasphemous, when I see these printed ikats and bandhanis, and oh, I just cannot stand it. Uh, and in fact, gone to an exhibition and I saw one sari that was hanging, and it looked very similar to the saris that my friend designs. I have not seen work similar to hers anywhere in the last couple of years. So when I saw that over there, I was just really taken aback. So I obviously took pictures of it and I sent it to her. And it was pretty much like a very, very cheap knockoff of her work. And I know she takes so many days and so many people, and it takes a lot of effort for her to make that one sari. And that sari which I saw a copy, it was a printed version. So she does this resist dyeing work, and that sari was a very cheap, not even a nicely copied. It was so badly copied, like just a printed version of her sari. It's really sad because she takes so much time to make them, and these guys are just printing it, like by like hundreds or thousands of pieces a day. It's really disturbing actually, and most of these places obviously they don't understand that there are ethics that one needs to follow, and it's definitely really sad to see when top brands also do it. So I think there's this Instagram page called Diet Sabya where he calls out people who copy, but I don't think they go so much into people appropriating traditional design, because I guess you really need a very keen eye to notice that. So obviously, if you're copying, then that's definitely not inspired work. Inspiration can only be a starting point of a story. It cannot be the story itself. And when you're telling a story that is not yours without any sort of acknowledgement to the people behind it, then that is just appropriating. And also, it's myopic to think that only the big fashion brands copy, because I have seen many artisans do it too, although they don't do it maliciously or with an intent to copy. To For them it's like, okay, can I see that as a challenge and can I make it? So this is where designers come in, because we need to let them know that, okay, this is not ethical, it is not appropriate. So you can maybe copy it, you can imitate it, but keep it as an experiment and see what you can do different with it, because of course people do need to imitate to be able to learn and understand.
So I think the solution would be more at looking at how that sort of copying each other can result in something new and original,
Absolutely.
rather than say
Yeah.
that this is my work or this is your work, or
Yeah.
like, you know.
I guess this is where open source is important, right?
That's a really great point, I think. And I think more people need to start looking at tradition, textiles,
Yeah.
design from that perspective.
Yeah, open source again without copying. So
Yeah, Creative Commons.
yes.
So, but then from a consumer perspective, how do you think someone can tell the difference between something that's a real ikat and like an ikat print? Especially now because we all have Instagram and Pinterest and
everything just looks so good in those photographs. So how is one to sort of distinguish when and not get ripped off when buying stuff
Right.
over Instagram?
The first step, I think, is to ask questions. So you should ask the people you're buying from. It's important to ask them, how do you get this made? What is this? What is special about it? Why is it? If you find something expensive, it's okay to ask why is it expensive. Most brands are happy to tell you, what has gone behind it for them to price it a certain way. And also read as much as you can. I guess it's naive to think that all the information will be presented to you. As consumers, we need to have the onus on ourselves as well to educate ourselves in what we are buying. And so there are enough and more online resources on how to identify this from that, or what is an ikkata, what the process that it goes through. And of course, if you know that a specific brand or anyone, any small business is, or any business is evading your questions or not being very clear about it, then you know that there's a good chance they're not selling what they claim. And I guess it's also important to take your time to shop until you're really sure that it fits all your parameters that you're looking for, whether it's sustainability, whether it's authenticity, and although like this is not really the situation for it, but visiting the designer or the artisan can really help. Like when you visit their studio or when you visit an artisan's workspace, you really do get an idea and a feel for whether it's genuine or not. So yeah, you feel more confident about what you're investing in
That seems like a lot of homework for the
it.
consumer.
And why not?
Yeah, I think maybe the future is not about just buying one piece, but about the whole experience of how
Yes.
you looked for that one
Yes.
piece and found it, and like experience of researching and understanding the process behind that piece,
Yeah.
and then owning it, hopefully for a couple of
Exactly.
generations.
No, it's easy to throw mud on other people or small businesses, saying that how do I know that they're authentic, or but it's difficult to do the homework behind it yourself, right? I mean, if you're concerned about these things, then these are the things one must do. If you're not, then if you really are okay with just believing what people are saying, then that's fine too. There is no hard and fast rule to this. But I do believe that the onus should equally fall on the consumer and not just on brands to prove that we're working honestly. Because I've been on both ends of this now, so I totally understand both sides to this.
And so has the work that you do also influenced the way in which you
Yeah,
buy
I mean,
things?
because also I'm in this field. If I want to buy something very specific, so my wish list is, like I want an ilkal of this color, It's a very simple wish list, but the idea is that I make it a travel list. So if I want to buy an ilkal, I will plan that, okay, someday when I go to ilkal, I will buy it. So that way I get to do a travel and I get to buy right at the source. And it's really slow because, it's obviously not possible to go as soon as I think of it. So, yeah, and that way I also get to see the whole process behind it and, all of it. Luckily, most of my shopping has happened that way.
Wow.
I've just managed to buy on my travels. And I actually stitch most of my clothes because I'm very particular about fit. So I just end up buying fabrics at exhibitions and getting them stitched to my size. And most of my clothes have lasted me like for the last 8, 10 years. And even the clothes I have now, I'm hoping will last me at least for the next 10 years. So that's how my shopping has changed.
So, speaking of shopping and your travels in order to shop, not everyone is fortunate enough to be able to invest that much time in doing that. But since you're a textile designer, that's something that's, I think, one of the privileges.
Yeah.
But for the common public who is interested in buying innovative, handcrafted products, craft exhibitions like Dastakar have been central to promoting craft and innovative textiles, right? So, do you think in the current COVID-19 situation, that these exhibitions may not be an option anymore? And are there any long term strategies to get through this in order to continue promoting innovation in craft, as well as promoting, allowing people to sort of discover like the whole experience of going through an exhibition and finding a fabric and then turning that into something?
I think we're all still figuring it out. At this point, online seems like the best option, because it's easily accessible to a lot of the potential buyers. But on the other hand, it's not possible for craftsmen to manage all of the production, that is creating the fabric and sales, is a bit too much to expect from them. But there's this collective that has come up in this lockdown as a response to helping the artisan and the handmade sector. It's called Creative Dignity.
Okay.
So these are different people, from craft, design, and the social sector, and related sectors. They've come together to help artisans through the situation, in whatever capacity that they need. So whether it is design input, or whether it is helping them with sales, they connect them with interested and potential buyers. So, I mean, I guess in the long term, a forum like this is super crucial, and we need to build on it for the future so that people can connect quickly to the right people instead of having to meander about.
Hmm.
And eventually, I guess exhibitions will open up. It may take maybe a year or so, but I guess the touch and feel is definitely something that online cannot replicate. So I'm hopeful that we'll all be able to meet through these craft exhibitions sometime not too far from now.
This was so interesting, especially for me, because I haven't had a chance to be so directly involved in textiles and crafts before.
Hearing from Aditi about what goes into the weaving process was quite eye opening for me as well. I was able to draw quite a few parallels to my own experience working with traditional craftspeople.
I think designers from all disciplines can draw some parallels from what Aditi mentioned about partnering with a craftsperson to design solutions.
True. As someone who's pretty hands on myself, I can attest to the fact that a whole new world of possibility just opens up when you move away from the drawing board and actually start working with the materials.
Yeah. And this conversation also made me think about the consumer journey, from considering to buying to maintaining products, especially something like handmade textiles.
It definitely seems like the investment goes so much beyond just the initial monetary aspect.
Yeah.
And I feel like even our current way of living is not exactly conducive to the care that some of these products require. And one of the reasons why fast fashion became so pervasive is probably because you could just toss all your clothes into the washing machine without a care.
Yeah. And also, maybe a decade ago, there existed a whole maintenance ecosystem when it came to delicate fabrics. Like there was the neighborhood darning guy. If you had a white sari that got a spill on it, you could get it dyed or block printed. And this definitely is not common anymore.
Yeah. And that's why I believe that the circular economy is so important. And as designers, we need to think in systems in order to create products that live up to their
Hmm.
potential and also help consumers to see the value in investing in them.
Yeah. And I also feel the continued support in educating consumers about what the best option for them would be, and also to make them confident, right? Make them feel like you can take care of this, we are with you.
Yeah.
I feel that can make the world of a difference. For example, when it comes to making a decision of, say, composting, a company like Daily Dump is doing a phenomenal job. I feel they're so invested in your whole lifestyle of composting beyond just that one time purchase.
That's a great example of how a systems approach can convince people to make sustainable choices.
Hey listeners, what fascinates you the most about Indian textiles?
And what challenges you? Tweet to us, and you might just hear us talk about you in part 2 of this episode.
Yeah, coming to your favorite listening platform shortly.
As always, you can find the transcript along with the references for this episode on our blog designlota.com.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.